Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Tell Your Story. I'm your host, Todd Nesloni, the Director of Culture and Strategic Leadership for TEPSA. And each week, I look to bring you a different guest who has encouraged, inspired, or challenged me in one way or another and invite them on to share some of their story in hopes that it inspires you to tell some of yours. I am so excited to have my special guest and friend and former assistant principal, Jennifer Short, on with me today. Jennifer, tell everybody a little bit about who you are.
So being assistant principal has been amazing and fun. It definitely was not originally on my plan, but what is? I have worked as an elementary assistant principal for 2.5 years and was recently moved to a junior high campus as assistant principal.
Mhm. So you got lots of stuff going on. And so how long were you in the classroom before you became an administrator?
10 years.
10 years. And, growing up, was education something that was on your radar period, or did you kind of fall into teaching like some people do?
So my parents being teachers, I decided I was not going to be in education.
Uh-huh.
They were dedicated educators, and I saw them just pour their heart and soul and work very hard for very little pay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I wanted to make the big bucks. Um, Went to college, and long story short, I worked in a daycare, called home to my mom and said, "Can you believe these children are in this daycare and no one's reading to them? They're just watching TV." And she says, "Jennifer, do you realize you sound like a teacher right now?" And I went, "Oh my gosh, you're right." So changed my major, and here I am.
That is amazing. What is something that you would say you probably unexpectedly learned about yourself by being in education?
To be perfectly honest, I really had no confidence in myself. I
Mm,
never was the best at anything. I was
right.
mediocre uh, at a lot of things and kind of just got by,
Mhm.
grades and everything. Uh, was involved in a lot of things, but like I said, just the average kid.
Mhm.
So I never really had a strength. And
Right.
so getting into education, I found my niche
Mhm.
and I just loved it and slipped right in and dove right in.
I love that. Well, something else that is unique about you, or at least in my opinion, unique, there's probably less people listening who are going to go, oh, I have this, but you have three boys. And in that three, you have a set of twins.
I
And
do.
I know that that is not always common. And those are actually your first two boys were the set of twins. And so tell me a little bit about what that has been like. When you were pregnant, when did you realize, oh my gosh, there's not one, there's two?
So going to get an ultrasound, the doctor all of a sudden says, "Oh, do you see this circle here? Hmm. Do you see this circle here?" Not thinking anything of it, and all of a sudden she says, "That's twins." And it's, what? Wait, what? There's
Mhm.
no twins anywhere in her family. Nowhere. They just all of a
Really?
sudden, yep, twins. No fertility drugs or anything. Just hello, here you go,
Uh-huh.
surprise.
So how far into your pregnancy were you? Like, had you already like started buying stuff for one kid? Now you were like, now I'm gonna have two, or was it still pretty early?
It was pretty early. I hadn't started purchasing anything yet.
Now, are you one of those who you waited to know the gender, or did you learn the gender early?
I wanted to know. The gender reveal thing was not a thing when I had
Ah.
boys, and so I'm so jealous. But no, I knew I had boys.
And so now your boys are how old? 8?
The twins are 9.
9 now. Oh my
9.
goodness. So you've now been with twin boys for 9 years. What are some things that you learned through having twins that you maybe didn't expect to learn?
They may be twins, but they are not twins. um, they have none of that twin vibe or anything. They are
Mhm.
complete opposites. I mean,
Right.
their looks alone show that. One is blonde, uh, tends to be a little skinnier. The other one is my solid rock redhead. So
Mhm.
they barely even look like twins, is what I say. Uh,
Right.
People don't even believe me, and they don't want to believe it sometimes. To
Mhm.
convince them, you are twins, guys.
Now, obviously, having a baby alone is a lot of work, but what was something that was unexpected when you had two of them you were having to cradle and change diapers and everything like that?
Um, so I was and a lot of people don't want to hear this, but I was very fortunate. The twins were easy, which is why I had another another little one. I thought, this is nothing. I got this. They they did bond, and they had someone at all times to
Mhm.
be with, and they knew the other was there. I love telling the story about when they were in their bassinet. I would have them separate, oh, don't go get, you don't want anybody to suffocate. Oh my gosh, be
Mhm.
careful. But then by the morning, they found each other and were actually snuggled up next to each other in the same way that they were when they were in my belly. So I was like, oh,
Aw.
wow. Yeah, they were pretty easy. I mean, I was stayed busy, but it
Mhm.
was something I loved. I
Yeah,
enjoyed it. It wasn't anything. They were fairly easy as infants. Now,
right.
when personalities came along, it got a little different.
I bet. I bet. So, do they have that whole thing you hear about, that twin ESP kind of thing? Do you see any of that in them?
Not a lot. I do like telling the story about how when they were little, uh, Chayton
Mhm.
was the first to actually start talking and talked a lot. And
Mhm.
then Coy, well, he lived up to his name. Didn't do a lot of talking, but he did gibberish.
Right.
And it was just intense conversations with his
Mhm.
gibberish. But Chayton could translate what he was
Really?
saying. And Coy could say something, and he would say, "Oh, Mama, Coy just said this." Okay. Eventually, he grew out of the gibberish, but it was
Uh,
just weird.
I
But
love that.
now, not really. Sometimes they'll kind of recognize feelings that are having with each other,
Mhm.
but they're boys and they don't really want to be that emotional. So,
Well, being a boy mom, what do you love most about being a mom of three boys?
I always thought, I'm a girl. I have to have a daughter. I need to do the
Mhm.
girl thing. But I really believe that I'm meant to be a boy mom. I have
Mhm.
a lot of fun with the wrestling, the acting silly and crazy, and exploring outdoors. Not to say that girls can't do that, but
Yeah.
um, just all the boy things. I love that. I have no problem jumping right in. My sister has two girls, and she even tells me, "You can totally tell you're a boy mom," because I'll roughhouse and not even realizing that I am.
Well, what I love too is, I follow so many of your excursions with the boys online, and you take them to some of the neatest things. But what I love from the photos is you take them to things that you're involved in too. And so it's not a, hey, I'm going to take you to this, go play and enjoy. Like I'm going to sit over here with the other moms and drink margaritas or whatever. It's like, no, I'm going to get in there and I'm going to do it. And I love that. You also do something with your boys where you take them on date nights with them individually, where they get to go on their own special thing. Where did that idea come from?
Um, I just, depending on what was going on with the boys, I found myself spending a little bit more time with one more than the other, out of all three, and it just felt bad. There was one
Mhm.
incident where one of the boys had to go to the hospital. He now has stitches, but spent a lot of time with him in the hospital while the other was home,
Right.
and I wasn't around him. I was in the hospital, and coming back after that, I think that was the first time I realized, I really need to dedicate individual time with them because, first of all, they are so individual. They have
Hmm.
different personalities. How can I take them all three on one date and have them all enjoy the same thing?
Right.
Um, so what I do is I like to sit and ask, what do you want to do? What do you want to
Mhm.
try? Um, and then we'll go do different things. And it's funny because I really don't get a lot of, well, that's not fair. I didn't get to do
Mhm.
that. They kind of realize and really appreciate the fact that they have their own special date. And so it's kind of something we all enjoy doing.
So I know you're not supposed to have favorites, but has there been a favorite one of those experiences for you?
Oh, it would have to be Chayton's rope course he wanted to go on.
Ah.
I only because that was something he was really into, and I'm a girl, and so it's been hard to convince him that girls can do stuff too. Your mama's tough. I'm not afraid. I'll get up there. I'll climb and go just as high as you. And so he really opened his eyes to, maybe mama can do this stuff. And
Right.
so we kind of bonded on a level that we had not yet before.
I
So,
love that. Well, one thing that I've really been impressed by you is for my whole time knowing you, you've my mom raising me and my brother, she was a single parent mother from seventh grade on with me and my brother. And so I remember all these different things that she was doing for us, all the work she put in. And, my entire time that I've known you, you've been a single parent mother as well to your boys. What has that taught you about yourself and raising those boys like that?
um, you know, with any parent, really, there's, whether you're a single parent or not, there's going to be moments where you're just like, I can't do this. This is too much right now. Um, but if I did have those moments, and for a while, I tend to just sit back and kind of maybe be a little depressed about things.
Mhm.
And it took me a while to realize, I do have a support system. I have a
Right.
great family. I wanted to be Miss Independent. I can do this. I can handle it all. Don't worry. I don't want to ask of anything more than I already have. But it really humbled me in
Yeah.
saying, it's okay to ask for help. I have a wonderful mother and father and sister who are always willing to jump in whenever needed. And I'm so grateful for them. But that was really, I had to get over my stubbornness.
Well, I think that's really powerful for people to hear because, whether in this instance we're applying it to being a single parent, but in any instance, I think so many of us want to prove that we're capable or prove that, I don't want anybody to think less of me or that, oh, well, she must be asking for help because she's not a very good mother. Like we have all these thoughts that go through our head. But I love what you say is that, you realizing that and relying on your support system in those moments where you just feel completely overwhelmed, at least provides you with an outlet to know I don't have to carry all this by myself. And it doesn't make me any less of a person because I'm asking for help, because I'm doing it for my boys and I'm doing it for my own mental health. And so I think for people to hear that and just be that reminded that we don't have to prove that we're strong by choosing to ask for help, I think that proves more strength because it shows that we are not too egocentric to think that we can do it all. Because no matter how much you think you can do it all, you hit that wall at some point. And when you hit that wall, you need to be ready. And
Yeah.
so, what do you find is the most difficult aspect of being a single mother?
Um, well, I already have a hard time with, having high expectations for myself.
Mhm.
And yes, there are moments where I do feel like that I'm really rocking it out. I'm doing a great job.
Mhm.
But when I'm not, it just kills me. Like,
Right.
is this really something is it gonna affect them when they get older? They're gonna
Mhm.
remember that I couldn't be there for this, or I missed something. But I've learned to really focus on those small moments.
Mm.
We don't need those big trips. We really don't even have to have the dates.
Yeah.
Uh, my boy's favorite time is at night
Mhm.
before we go to bed. I spend at least 10 to 15 minutes in each room, in each bed, reading different books. And that is the easiest, smallest thing that I could do. I don't
Yeah.
have to purchase anything. It's just that time. And I find them sitting and I'll read and, okay, Mama, I really want to talk, but I don't know what to ask. Let me think. And so they're really trying to keep me in their room. And that
Mhm.
it reminds me, you know what? I'm okay. I'm doing fine. They love me.
Because as they get older, you're going to have less and less of those. So taking advantage of those
I
so much
know.
now is, but I think that that's so great that, and I know that there's probably so many days where you're like so tired and so worn out and like, where do I get the energy? But I think that for those boys to see that, for any kids to see that, I think it really makes a big deal. But you said something else in there too, that really resonated with me. You said, you're really hard on yourself. And what I found through all of these tell your story conversations is that every single person I interview, no matter what they portray online or in person, struggles with that self doubt, that whole, am I good enough? will everybody know that I'm faking this? Am I going to hold this together? Am I meant for this? When those thoughts start to enter your mind and begin to consume you, how do you level out where it doesn't take over?
Um, I've got lots of different things that I try. I know if it involves the boys, and I really feel like that I'm kind of losing control, which missing out on things, or maybe the boys and I have moments where we're not meshing well
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
or getting along. Everyone has those
Uh-huh.
moments. Um, I really have to stop and think, okay, what's important right now? Is the activity that we're missing, or the fact that I'm not taking them on big trips, or is that what's important, or have I have I stopped and taken that time with them that they needed, or did I miss out? I guess taking a moment to reflect, really,
Right.
before continuing down that destructive, depressing path.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And then also, like I said, I've got a great family that I can go and talk to, and they'll be honest. They'll tell me,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh yeah, you handled the situation in a way you probably shouldn't have." Oh, okay. All right. So, and they're very helpful, and will help me work with the boys. So,
Well, and I love that you made that comment of it's an honest relationship, because I think you don't ever want people who just tell you, oh no, it's going to be okay. It's like, no, if I'm in the wrong, like lay it out there, tell me
yes.
all that kind of stuff, because that's the only way we truly get better. Well, that makes me lean to my next question of, when you look back on your life and all the different things that have taken place, and I know that when I ask this question, you're gonna have lots of answers, but just pick one. What is one instance that you reflect on and go, that really helped shape the woman I am today?
Um, I definitely would have to say just deciding to get a divorce.
Mm,
It was something that I tried not to have to
yeah.
do. Lots of different things. Got to a point where I wasn't me anymore.
Mhm.
I wasn't happy. It was affecting everyone around me, and it
Right.
was hard for me to admit it.
Mhm.
Um, that just was not something that I was willing to do.
Yeah.
I was worried of what everyone's going to think of me. Am I a quitter?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, how is this going to affect the boys? And actually, just being brave enough to take that step, and knowing that what's in the best interest of the boys, what kind of future do I want them to have, relationship wise? Do they even know what it's supposed to look like? If this
Right.
is their model, I've got to do something for them. And so taking that step, knowing that my whole world would change, was very scary.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't easy. Continued down that road for a while, and it
Mm-hmm.
got pretty rough.
Right.
Uh, but just knowing that I survived that,
Mm-hmm.
and turned into an independent woman that
Right.
I like to say that I am, where I was not before,
Right.
kind of a shell of a person before.
Mhm.
That kind of gave me strength that, if I can survive that, I can survive anything.
Yeah. And I appreciate you sharing that and being vulnerable. I remember when I was old enough to have that conversation with my mother about her, and it's so funny. So many of the things you said right there just brought back memories of that conversation, of her saying, I was so scared would everybody think that I was a failure because my marriage didn't work out. My parents stayed married until my father passed, and so was I not doing that very well? And then something else you said that I remember her saying is that she had lost herself, that she had defined herself completely by the relationship instead of who she was. And once deciding to separate from my dad, she said, I didn't even know who I was anymore. So I was afraid that I wouldn't be able to find the me I knew was inside, but I felt like I'd lost her, and I didn't know if I would be able to find her again. And so, I think it's so interesting that you express, and I'm sure many people who have been through different relationships have probably felt that at some point or another. So I appreciate you sharing that. When you look at all the people who have played a role in your life outside of family, who's somebody that has really impacted you?
um, Outside of family,
Mm-hmm. Because the family is the easy answer.
Yeah, it is. Um, I don't think I have one. I
Hmm.
think it's a collection of many people.
Right.
Everyone has had some sort of impact in my life, whether
Hmm.
it's people I've worked with, people who were friends. Uh, I don't. I think it's a combination. I just seem to have something that I take with me from each person that I meet. There's not a huge impact,
Yeah.
um, but because I still have that little bit of that stubborn side. I don't like to sit and dump or rely on someone to
Hmm.
carry my burdens or the issues that I'm going with or dealing with. But just the small moments, if someone's there for me, not even realizing what I'm needing them for,
Yeah. I love
um,
that.
taking that away, that's awesome.
So, I usually end on a question. I'm going to ask you in a minute, but I'm totally going to shift gears and it's going to seem very random, but I cannot let you leave this conversation without asking you about this. So, something that you have done for about the last year or so is you've tried to every week, at least once a week, and maybe things happen and it only happens once a month, but you've tried to consistently ride the school bus home with students. And
Yes.
so, for the listeners or viewers that are watching this or listening, kind of tell me a little bit about A, why you decided to do that, and B, what have you learned through that?
So originally, I started just because I needed to know more about my students. I'd come from a different type of district that wasn't as Title One, I guess.
Hmm.
Um, so I wanted to know where my kiddos were coming from. What what are the differences in their home life? So that was really what it was. I was driving around just to see uh, where everybody's getting off.
Hmm.
But then I found myself sitting and having conversations with the kiddos. They were asking me questions, and they were silly, random conversations, or maybe we just got caught up in one of the hand jives games. um, and that really was so much fun, and they were so excited of just that those moments that I had with them, just sitting and talking with them. Some would just open up immediately and talk the entire time.
Hmm.
Others were kind of like, "What is she? Are we in trouble? Why is she on this bus?" I still get that sometimes,
Uh-huh.
um, but it just grew into something that I look forward to. And if I don't
Hmm.
get to ride the bus, it's almost like my week was incomplete. Um, and connecting with kids that way, there are definitely conversations that I would not have inside
Hmm.
my assistant principal office
Yeah.
or walking around the building and seeing them. And since I'm not a teacher who sees them all day, I really don't get that opportunity to
Hmm.
actually know them. But riding the bus, I do. I ask, I get to see where they're going. I ask them, "What do you do when you get home?" Um, and I've really had some heartfelt conversations with some kiddos that really surprised me. But it just connecting with those kids in that way where they feel comfortable talking, because when you're sitting between a seat, it's kind of almost a private little space,
Yeah. Yeah.
And so there it's just the kiddo and I, we're having a conversation, and there's been some really beautiful moments that I've had.
Well, what I always loved is when we would be walking down the hall and a kid would go, "Are you going to ride the bus with us today, Miss Short?" And I'm like, see, they love those moments that you spend with them that are outside the school hours. So I just had to ask about that because I love that you do that. And you can see in the pictures that you post just the joy on the kids that there's an adult riding with them. Because, those kids, they get tired of riding with the same people every single day, too. And for some of them, they have to ride so long that throwing somebody new in the mix is like, oh, today's going to be a good bus ride day. So
Yeah.
I think
Hmm.
that's awesome. Well, Jennifer, one question that I always love to end all of these conversations on, and I know again you may have many answers to this, but just think of one. If there was one thing that you wish more people knew or understood, what would your one thing be?
In what context?
However you want to interpret that. Some people answer education, some people answer about themselves, some people answer in general.
uh, Maybe in general. And I know it's something that's brought up and talked about a lot, but keeping in mind that there may be a story that you're not aware of and you may
Mhm.
never be privy to.
Mhm.
And because I lived that, I had a story, and I did not share. I didn't want to share.
Right.
I wanted to be seen as a professional. I wanted to be seen as a good mom. I didn't want to share any negative aspects. A lot of people say, "Oh, just on social media, you're posting all these great things. You have such a perfect life." Uh, I can't say I have a perfect life, but I do know that I want to share out the positives, because if I that's what I'm sharing out, that's what I want to
Right.
focus on. But keeping that in mind, that you never really know. Don't be quick to judge.
Mhm.
Um, and don't feel hurt when someone doesn't open up and
Right.
share.
Mhm.
Don't take it personally. Doesn't mean that you're not a good person or that person doesn't care for you back. It's just they have their own way of handling and dealing with things that may be different from yours.
Right.
So just be a little more aware of that.
I think that's powerful. And I love that you say that at the end, because even somebody who you're used to them sharing things with you, you may get them on a day where it's like, I don't want to let it go today. Like I want to hold it in. And I think that's so important what you say too about no matter how the person portrays themselves to be, there's always stories that go untold, and to keep that in mind. So Jennifer, I so appreciate you and just your vulnerability and your honesty tonight. And it was a great conversation. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
And thank you, everybody, for listening or watching another episode of Tell Your Story. Remember, you can check out past episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. It's there. I hope tonight's conversation with Jennifer has encouraged you to get out there and tell your story, because every story matters.